This is from my personal experience, and I leave it to the readers, the option of believing it or not. During the second year of my college, myself and 3 of my friends moved to a new room, since it's an usual custom that every year students has to change the rooms based on their seniority. The first few days were quite fine, but after a week we felt something strange and different. Like, one of my roomie saw something cross behind while she was brushing in front of the bathroom mirror, and another person felt like someone was walking all the time in room. But we thought since we are new to the room, we are feeling it that way. One night while sleeping, I felt like someone was pressing me to the bed, and I felt suffocating. I tried moving my hands to wake my friend sleeping next to me, but that was when I realized I was not able to move any part of my body. It was like some heavy object was placed over me, and I felt totally paralyzed. I really don't remember what happened after, only that I woke up very late the next morning. I thought maybe that incident would have been a dream, and I didn't tell this to others. But strangely, it started to occur often. I told this to one of my friends whose father was a doctor. He told that it was due to the sudden dip in sugar levels in the body, or some other blah blah science stuffs, and it will get all right by itself after 5 or 10 minds, and no need to worry much about it. So I took it lightly and didn't concern about it anymore. Whenever that incident occurred, I took it lightly. But one day, one of my roommate woke up screaming in midnight, telling that she saw something next to me. We used to have night lamps on. And that was the last day for us in that room. We fought with our warden and changed the room very next day, but we didn't tell what happened, since it would cause unnecessary chaos in hostel. And I swear, after moving out of that room, I never felt that incident again in my life. Strange.
My name is Jack. In my hostel, the story is something like this. In my hostel, there is a room in the corner numbered 209 on 2nd floor, which is locked for a long time and never opened. Some our seniors told that there was a one boy living in that room who loved one girl in his class, but he couldn't share his feelings to her. And one day, his roommate proposed his crush and became her boyfriend. The boy was hurt. After some time, he couldn't control his feelings and told her that he loves her. But girl said, "Now it's too late, sorry for that." Then after some time, that boy started becoming depressed and stressed. He started smoking. One day he couldn't control himself and hung himself on the fan. He leaves a suicide note in his locker. It was written on the note that, "I can't live without you, that girl." After some time of this incident, weird events started to happening in hostel. It seems as if there was a door knocking loudly at night. Sometimes it seemed that the door was colliding. Then his roommate started listening to the voice of the boy who lived in that room. He left the room because he was so scared and also complained to the rector. Sir locked that room and warned to students that not to open. Once our seniors tried to open that room, but they couldn't open it. Even today, all people say that there is still the sound of banging door from the room. That room is still locked. No one goes to that room side at night. So, this is the ghost story of my hostel. Some people believe, some do not. I have not had this experience yet, but story is so interesting, so I thought I would tell you. If you like story of my hostel, then upvote my answer. You can tell me by comments. Thank you so much for read. I'll share my experience. I don't know if it was ghost or a figment of my imagination. What I do know is that it was extremely real and in that moment, quite scary. So this happened back in winter 2018. For my work, I used to travel a lot many times to small towns and tier 2-3 cities. In most cases, I used to travel alone. This one time I was staying in a modest hotel in this town. I had booked for 4 nights. It was located on the outskirts. There was a 2-story main building and ground floor rooms on 2 wings in either sides of the main building. I was allocated the second last room in the left wing. The rooms were all booked out. It was around 12:40 in the night. I was on a video call with another client team. It was a chilly night. It was slightly foggy outside. I was sitting on a chair with my laptop on the bed. It was in the center. My back was towards the door, and I was facing the bathroom. I was engrossed in the meeting when suddenly I started to smell cigarette smoke. At first, I ignored. Then it started to get stronger. It was as if someone was smoking right in my room. I was constantly looking at my laptop screen. Suddenly, I felt as if someone was standing behind me. It was this strange feeling that someone was just there. I ignored and continued with my meeting. During the meeting, once in a while, the client would look in the right corner as if he was seeing something in the room behind me. It was the same direction in which I felt someone was standing. I turned back slowly. There was no one there. We wrapped up our meeting. The cigarette smell had reduced. I went out of the room to check if someone was smoking outside. There was no one. Except for the flickering light in the hallway, everything else was dark. People on either side of my room were not in, as the main electric switch outside was off. I went back in the room. I kept my laptop in the bag and was getting ready to sleep. I went to the bathroom. I peeped outside the window. In the dim bathroom light falling outside, I could see a distorted figure of a man standing there staring at me. While rest of him was unclear, I distinctly remember his eyes. They were big and black. I quickly got out of my room, went around the back to see who's there. In the pitch blackness, I could see the light falling from my bathroom. There was no one there. I went back in my room. With all lights turned on, I went to sleep. Next morning after breakfast, I went to the reception and told them what happened. The receptionist and the manager both fell silent, and I could see they were extremely uncomfortable and slightly scared. I asked them what happened. They weren't willing to tell. After much pressuring, the manager spoke. Last year in the room in which you were staying, a man stayed there. He had booked for 3 nights. He never got out of the room. He would order his food to the room itself. He was a chain smoker. Despite there being a no smoking policy in the room, he would constantly smoke. My staff, me personally, went and warned him. But he continued. On the 3rd night, he ordered a lavish meal. He gave some money to the bellboy to go out and bring him sweets and alcohol. He also gave the bellboy a hearty tip. The next morning checkout time was 10 a.m. When he didn't come out till noon, we went and knocked on the door. He didn't answer. After some time with the master key, we opened the door. The room was filled with cigarette smell. He was sleeping on the bed. I went and called him a couple of times. No response. I touched him to turn him over. His body felt cold. I immediately stepped back and called the police. He had committed suicide in the night. We had locked the room for 1 year as per the police orders, and finally opened it last week. Since all other rooms were booked, we gave that room to you last night. I couldn't believe my ears. I sat there for some time. Finally, I went, gathered my stuff, and left the hotel, never to return back. This is a true story. We were staying in this fancy hotel for my cousin's wedding. I was 12. I woke up to a rough shove, assuming that my sister was waking me up. It was early morning, about 7:30. I groggily stepped out of the bed and was hit with hairspray fumes. I heard the sound of someone taking a shower, as well as loud, hurried footsteps and repetitive spritzes of the hairspray can. I walked to the dresser and pulled out a blouse and a skirt. As I got dressed, I heard knocking on my door. I pulled my top fully on and opened the door. There was no one there. I was kind of freaked out right now, but I knew that it must be my imagination, as I was about half asleep at the time. I exited the bedroom. I heard the shower shut off as I passed the lavatory, then my father's heavy footsteps. At the end of the hall, there was another restroom. I heard repetitive spritzes coming from there and called to my mother. "Hey, Mom, I need to pee, and Dad's in the other bathroom." I heard my mother's voice. "Alrighty." It was definitely her voice, but alrighty was not something she had ever said. I rolled my eyes and walked away. I figured that I should wake my granddad, as I heard heavy snores coming from the room that he was sharing with my parents. I wondered why my parents hadn't woken him up. When I opened the door, I was scared to see that the room was empty. Just then, the noises and the smell of hairspray stopped. I ran downstairs and saw that my roommates, Dad, Mom, Granddad, Clarissa, were already eating breakfast. I checked my watch and saw that it was already 10 on. My mom stared at me. "What?" I thought. My sister then said, "What the heck?" I asked them what was wrong. My sister then said, "You literally just went to the bathroom," and pointed to the lavatory next to the small kitchen area. I walked over there and pressed my ear to the door. Sure enough, someone was there, washing their hands. I shook it off and counted my fingers. 10 of them. I wasn't dreaming. I knocked on the door, and inside the bathroom, I heard my own voice calling out, "Alrighty." I looked over at my parents, sister, and granddad, who were all pale. Behind my back, I heard the lock click, followed by my own voice saying, "Hey there, Sarah," and footsteps. I turned around just in time to see my own feet, dressed in my black velvet flats, turning the corner on the staircase. I felt paralyzed with fear, and goosebumps crept up my back. I wasn't able to move for about a minute before I told my family all about what had happened a few moments ago. My sister told me that yesterday, when she woke up, I wasn't in my bed, but she heard noises coming from the bathroom. When she went there, she saw me walking down the hall in my pajamas and called out to me, but I kept walking. When she went back to my room, I was still sleeping in my bed. She freaked out and didn't tell anyone. Fast forward to 2 years later. My cousin now has a 6-month-old baby, and we're talking to each other over tea. I told my cousin about what happened to me and my sister, and she froze. "That happened to you too?" she said. I felt the goosebumps return to my arms and legs. She then told me that she had woken up and walked downstairs when she saw her fiancé, now husband, sitting at the table, eating cereal. He greeted her, then said that he was going to get something from upstairs. It took him some time. Eventually, she felt sort of concerned and went to check on him. He was asleep, still in his pajamas. My mother was a single parent through my teenage years. I have 2 younger sisters as well. My mother worked 3 jobs at one time. She was always gone. Her first job started at 4:30 in the morning. She left the house before any of us were awake for school and wouldn't be home until midnight. Yeah, she didn't sleep for years. One morning I saw a dark figure walk past my open bedroom door down the hall. I called out, "Mom?" The figure leaned back and poked its head into the doorway as if it were taking one more glance to answer my call, and then continued back down the hallway out into our living kitchen area. I got out of bed. Not having heard the very loud front door close, I imagined my mother would be in the living room gathering her items before leaving. I walked into our living area and found no one. Nothing. I immediately phoned my mother. She was already at work. I told her what had happened and explained that I was freaking out. This was before cell phones, so my mother had asked me to take the cordless phone and check the entire house. "Are the doors locked, front and back?" "Yes." "Check my room. Is it empty?" "Yes." "The bathroom?" "Yes." "Oh my God, Mom, I know I saw someone, didn't I?" My mom calmed me down, tried to explain that maybe it was sleepy stuff in my eyes throwing me off. Over the weekend when we had time to spend together, Mom finally broke down telling me that maybe it was a ghost, but it would be a friendly ghost. Mom went on to explain that the people who sold her the house did tell her that an elderly man had peacefully passed away in his sleep in it before we purchased it. My sister, who is only 3 years younger than me, decided to name the ghost. It was a kind old man, so his name would be Henry. Naming the ghost made it seem less scary for some odd reason. After the first sighting and a name, Henry maybe felt a little more comfortable coming out because we started to see him or his antics more frequently throughout our home after that. Henry would shut the bathroom door. If one of us girls left it open while using the restroom, this happened very frequently. We were a house full of girls, so we never bothered to shut the door to our one bathroom that we all shared, and locks were not an option, especially in the mornings when we were all getting ready for school. One day, both my younger sisters were visiting with friends or doing their own things, so I had the house all to myself. I decided to watch a movie. We kept our movies on the bottom shelf of a china hutch that my grandfather made for my mom. The door was heavy and preferred to be open as opposed to shut. What I mean to say is, if you unlock the door, it would naturally swing wide open. When open, the one door, movie side, would hang in such a way as to block access to the hallway from the living room. I didn't need to go down the hall, so I left the door open. While watching the movie out of the corner of my eye, the door slowly swung shut on the china hutch, and while it didn't lock, it was impossible that it would close on its own without some help. Chills ran up and down my spine, arms, legs, neck, etc. I immediately phoned my mother at work again and said, "Hey, sorry to call you at work, but Henry just closed the door on the china hutch and suddenly I didn't feel like being alone anymore." Mom told me that she understood and was impressed with Henry's strength to close that door. I agreed. We chatted until I told her that I felt better, safe again, and went back to watching my movie with the china hutch door locked closed to keep Henry happy. We moved out of that house when I turned 17, and as we were closing the front door for the last time on move-out day, we all stuck our heads back inside and said, "Goodbye, Henry." Even though Henry was a friendly ghost, it was still scary as a young teen to come face to face, so to speak, with a ghost, regardless how nice he was. In 2015, I sold a haunted house in the Bay Area of California. After 58 years, and it affecting 3 generations, with countless times of failed efforts to rid it or cleanse it from whatever was there. This all began with a Christmas gift of a spirit board, gone terribly wrong in the hands of a very inexperienced 8-year-old child, and that child is me. We've regularly had our names called out, sounding like people that we knew, to having someone sit on our bed that escalated to being laid on and held down. Mirrors were a nightmare, as we always saw someone or something walk past, which would mean whatever it was had to be at least 5 feet from the ground. In our living room, anything near an antique mirror that was hanging would shatter. First we'd hear the crackle sound, and then pow. Vases, old collectible 60s ashtrays that are heavy and thick, and picture frame glass. We heard parties happening in our backyard with a lot of people, talking, laughing, moving the yard furniture, and playing music. Some nights were difficult to get any sleep and the motion sensor light went on and off all night long. However, if looked outside, every sound stopped and nothing had been disturbed. As a teenager, I started yelling from my bed out of the window to shut up. I'm trying to sleep, and it worked. Over the years, the activity only increased. Friends complained about someone or something following them home. And by the way, are you into witchcraft? No, with this coming from people who knew nothing about the history of my childhood home. A couple of friends had come over while we had a 1940s chalk figurine levitate in a china cabinet. It was the 70s, so no pictures, but with 8 witnesses. There's so much. From having whatever this is followed to wherever I've lived, and with more activity and too many experiences to print in here, it then started to affect my kids and then my grandchildren. It followed my granddaughter and Liv G'd in the tree outside of her 2nd-story window, and before moving out, we learned its name. No one could live there. I bound it to the land itself by using its name. However, it's not the only thing to come through. When I removed the antique mirror last, because I didn't want it broken, the 2 brokers that I'd sold it to were present. Behind the mirror and on the wall were the shadows of 2 people looking out. This was the last property that they'd flipped, and it sat empty for almost 2 years, which is a huge loss of money. I'd like to share more, but my internet connection keeps cutting out.